is it about the roster that excites you?
I think there is a level of versatility in there that is exciting. It's been a system that they've played in for a long time, and just the structure of what they've done and how they've done it and why they have done it. It's going to be a change for them, but we're excited as a coaching staff to really be able to create something that is best for their skill sets and fits their personalities. I'm big on flexibility and being able to play to your best players and force offenses to try to find your issues and to have to deal with their own problems, not always being reactive.
Jim, you've been through scheme changes yourself as a player. How do you feel going through that as a player can help you teach these players how to adjust to a scheme change now as a coach?
It really shaped what I believe in as a coach. The example I'll give was with Rex Ryan in that scheme. Rex Ryan, Mike Pettin, Jim O'Neill was in the system for 6 years in 4 different places, right? So to see how it morphed from one place to the next, what you kept, what you changed, terminology changes, how the personnel dictates how you really set up the game plan, and overall just the scheme, right? Starting in the offseason. So as a player, being able to do that, again, through 4 different phases of my career, that really sparked my interest in coaching, right? That sparked my interest in if I do this, if I get into coaching, this is what it's going to look like, and was able to take that, straight to Wisconsin after I got done playing and be able to implement it. And it was the other exciting piece about talking with Joe Brady is kind of the autonomy he's giving me to get the right people in the building as far as coaches, and let's create a defense that we can all be proud of, and let's create a defense that the NFL doesn't want to play against.
Jim, if you could characterize what you believe the defense is, what are the hallmarks that make this defense as good as it's been for you through your career?
Yeah, we're going to be an attacking defense up front, in the back end. We're going to attack the football. That's the biggest stat in football is turnover. So we're going to be aggressive. We're going to fly around. We're going to communicate. We're going to play well together, right? It is team defense, but we're going to cause issues for offense, and we're going to force them to react to us, right? I don't want to counterpunch. We want to be a defense that is constantly evolving and growing throughout a game and throughout a season.
Coach, Mookie Hawkins, by the way,
thank you.
But again, this Bills defense has struggled with getting the quarterback on the ground. How do you plan to maximize that pass rush without sacrificing?
Yeah, we're going to be aggressive. We're not going to be reckless, right? There is a right and a wrong way, in my opinion, on how to attack quarterbacks in the NFL, and that it changes a little bit week to week based on their skill set, and you have to play to the strengths of your players, right? We were able to do it a certain way in Denver. That may not be the way that it looks here, right? But you have to affect the quarterback, right? You have to try to change the comfort level of that quarterback. You got to be able to speed him up. You got to be able to slow him down. You have to be able to control the tempo of a game, right? And the number one way to control the tempo of a game is stopping the run, right? To force them into situations where the defense is advantageous, right? You're in an advantageous position as a defense. So firm believer in stopping the run to make teams predictable, try to make them be more one-dimensional, and that allows you to really force them to react to you. So that's where it's always going to start. I think that's great defense. And once you get into that element of the game where you're trying to attack the quarterback specifically, there's a lot of different ways to get it done. And we're going to piece something together that we feel like is going to be the right for this group.
Jim, I don't mean to make you feel old with this question, but 20 years ago, you were instrumental in helping George Wilson here change from a wide receiver to a safety position. I mean, he was at your elbow week in, week out, and learn that position. Is that maybe where the seeds of coaching in your head began, or was it even before that?
Well, I'm from a huge coaching family, right? That's what I knew. Mom, dad, aunts, uncles. That's what I was kind of raised in. As a player, I was in that kind of mentorship role or kind of coaching position a lot of times, and I loved it. It's a credit to George, right? First of all, he had a tremendous career here, and like I am a sucker for guys who just want to learn football, that just are curious and they want to learn more. They want to understand the game at a higher level. You know, that's my sweet spot. So when you get those guys in the room, like I'm always going to have things for them, right? As a coaching staff that we're putting together, we want teachers, we want developers. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions of the NFL is it is a business. It's, you know what? It can turn that way very fast, right? If you're going to make it transactional with a player, guess what? He's probably going to do the same to you. So we want to get teachers. We want to get developers. We want to get connectors. That's what Joe Brady is, right? You want somebody that can build these relationships to get the trust, to get the buy-in, to get the ownership in everything that you're trying to get accomplished. As a player, you know, I prided myself. I went from team to team a lot, went to a lot of different locker rooms. Like, how can I earn the trust and respect of this group quickly, right? That was always my goal going in. That will be my goal as a coach. And we'll challenge all of our coaches to have that mindset of these guys don't deserve, like, we don't earn their respect, or we don't deserve their respect right away. You got to go earn it, and you got to be consistent in the communication and consistent in how you approach your relationships. And the greatest teams are always going to have that ownership from the locker room, right? If it's coach driven, you got a chance to be successful. But if it's player driven, those are always the best teams and the ones that get talked about for a long time.
When you think about the Broncos defense, I mean, one of the first things people think about is Patrick Surtain. I know it's early on looking at the personnel here, but when you see Christian Benford, what do you see, and what do you think the possibilities are with him as your number one corner?
Yeah, he's a very talented player. He's had opportunities in the past to travel and track number one receivers. It's something that we will consider as we go on. Like, I'm really excited to deep dive into the personnel, into the skill sets to create the best package for him. Not quite there yet. I'd love to give you a little bit deeper answer, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for the way he plays, right? The passion he plays with, the physicality, the energy. He's going to be a big leader for this defense, and we're going to create the scheme around players like that, right? That the known commodities, right? There are guys that you know are going to be a big piece of this, and then there's others that we have to figure out what the right mix of talent and leadership is going to be. But a guy like him who's proven who he is and his value to this roster, like, those are the guys that are in our mind when we set this thing up.
Jim, when you were growing up and then when you started playing and coaching, there was a maybe true difference between 3-4 and 4-3. We've heard a lot since your name has come up and you've been hired. Fans are wondering, okay, it's 3-4, 4-3. Can you just speak to the evolution of how all that doesn't have to be just straight? It kind of is a bit, I guess, multiple, and it's a hybrid of sorts. Maybe you can kind of answer that better.
Yeah, it is much more fluid than it used to be. I think the evolution of spread offense throughout high school, college football, it's very similar to the NBA, where it's created a little bit more positionless type of player, right? There are unique skill sets all around the NFL where guys don't quite fit in your tradition of edge defender, defensive tackle, nickel, safety, right? And that's where I've had the most success in my career as a coach, was finding those guys that fit in a little bit different role, right? You have to be a more creative in order to play to their strengths a little bit more often, because it may not be just traditionally they're elite at this skill or they're elite at this skill. Their main value is the versatility that they bring. Being a Swiss Army knife, high football IQ, right? Communication skills. The more people you have in that room, it doesn't really matter pre-snap presentation what it looks like, you can still get to the same concepts. So I do think that the way that these guys have been raised through football in the 7-on-7 generation, and again, a lot of spread offense, that it leads to a little bit more diverse skill set for a lot of players that are now in the NFL.
And how does that, on a down-to-down situation, stress an offense from what you've been able to see at the NFL level?
If you can create a lot of different looks with the same 11 people, right, that's when offenses have to react, right? It changes blocking schemes, right? It changes what the quarterback from a visual presentation sees down in and down out. For you, it's very simple, right? For you, it's core concepts and just different presentations of the same, either front structure or coverage that you're getting to. It's going to look different to an offense. So big believer that you can create a lot of volume within your system without being too complicated, right? You have to be efficient. You have to be very good at what you do, but it's more in how you present it than what's actually happening on the field. So you're forcing offenses to think, right? You're forcing offensive lines and quarterbacks. They have the most stress on them on the field. And if you can force the offensive line to think, if you can force a quarterback to think pre-snap and have to react post-snap, then you're going to be in control of a lot of snaps.
Do you remember about your original time, undrafted free agent who came in with Malarkey? What do you remember about those days? You were a real long shot at that point to make the team. What are your recollections?
Number one, the thing that jumped out was just how close the locker room was. It was, I think Buffalo is a unique place, right? It's a unique place in the NFL. And the thing that stuck with me and kind of stood out early and then stuck with me throughout my career, that locker room felt a little bit different here as far as how tight it was, how much players hung out with each other, and in the interaction away from this building was different than almost every other place that I was, right? And that memory always stuck with me, right? Some of my closer friends that stayed in touch with throughout, even to this day, were here. And I think those things really stick with me when it was coming down to the decision on where to go. And then outside of that, it just, the fan base, they just want to win, right? They want to support this team. They want to just be part of a Super Bowl champion team. And they're going to get on you when you're not playing well, right? They're going to have answers when you're struggling. But deep down, they really just want to watch you succeed, and they want these players to play a certain way, right? They want the players to act a certain way, right? To respect what this place really is. That's the thing that stuck out from that first time I was here.
Jim, when you look at, this would be a change for certainly the players who've been here. Do you think of like a timeline of how you would envision this going in terms of like setting up your structure and all before it becomes individual players in certain spots? Because you have the off-season program, the draft, all the different players coming in. Is that something you envision, or is that something that's adaptable as it goes along the way?
I think it has to be adaptable as it goes on. There are certain knowns that we are able to game plan around, and then between free agency, between the draft, like there's going to be change on what this roster is eventually going to end up in the fall. So we have a plan. We're going to lock ourselves in a room and just get to work evaluating the talent, right? What's the starting point? Again, it was been the same system for a long time here, right? It wasn't all broken, right? It doesn't all need to be thrown out. There's elements that we'll be able to build off of. There's a comfort level from players that you want to maintain. And this is something that will continue to evolve. It might look a lot different in year 2 than year 1, and that's okay, right? It doesn't mean that we're not setting the standards at a certain level from day 1, right? But the presentation of it might look a little bit different as this thing gets pieced together.
Over the last 2 seasons in Denver, being there, how did that, I guess, continue to shape your view on NFL defense, how you want to attack offenses, and what did you gain from that prepared you for this opportunity?
It was a great opportunity to be around, a Hall of Fame level coach in Sean Payton, and just to see the organization, the communication, right? How he handles the draft, free agency, the season, the week-to-week ups and downs. Anytime you have a chance to kind of sit back and learn from somebody who's done it and has a process, right? And everything that he does, you learn a lot from that. Vance Joseph being a veteran defensive coordinator in this league, and being able to work hand in hand with him for 2 years and just see how he attacked problems, right? How he communicated with the team and the players, and just weekly how we game plan to put our players in the best position week in and week out. That was a big step for me. Coached for 1 year, and then I was defensive coordinator. So I skipped a lot of steps in the process, and to be able to take a step back and be more in a supporting role, right? Have a voice, have a lot of influence on things that we did, but at the same time be able to step back, not call plays on Sunday, support the defensive coordinator, support the head coach, right? Coach that position group. That was a huge thing for me in the transitioning from college to the NFL. So definitely going to be a huge influence on how we build this thing, because I think we did it the right way, right? We empowered the coaches, both of those two that I mentioned, they empowered the coaches to have a voice, right? To have their opinions. And it's definitely things that I'm going to continue forward with now that I'm a defensive coordinator.
Coach, now that you are here back home in Buffalo, Bills Mafia want to know, was it a catch?
Was not. We caught it. Denver caught it that time. I'll have a different opinion here very soon once this season. To me, it's still the 25 season. That Super Bowl hasn't been played yet, so I have to have a little bit of loyalty there, but ask me in another week and I'll give you a different answer.
Jim, when you talk about how you kind of started as a position coach in 1 year and then stepped right into being defensive coordinator, where most of your peers had that decade of being quality control and graduate assistant and all that stuff. How has your time being more of a player in those years when other guys were doing more supporting roles maybe altered your maturation and development as a coach, kind of stepping in, like you said, early as that more responsible position?
Yeah, I mentioned just how, like, being in different systems in different places. I was around a group of coaches for 6 years, a good number of coaches, and in the same system. So as time goes on, that's rare in the NFL, right? Where you have players that are kind of with you for that long. It happens every once in a while, and every team has a number on their roster, but there's not many, right? There's a lot of movement. So to be kind of going with them, walking hand in hand in those transition phases, obviously I was able to provide a lot of feedback and input, kind of be a little bit of a bridge between some of the players and coaches at times. And I think that leads to coaching. That is coaching, right? That is coaching. You're constantly trying to communicate with your staff, with the players, take everything in, right? Get everybody's input. And then at the end of the day, like, you're going to have to make those hard decisions on what's right and what's wrong. But I think as a player, that was one of my strengths, of being that communicator, being able to help out young guys, be able to be in mentorship roles. And that really did shape what I thought was the right way to coach, the wrong way to coach. Everyone who's played sports, those core memories of the coach that took you under his wing and really taught you, how to develop, how to mature as a person, all of those things just kind of shape you as a coach. And I knew I wanted to do it a certain way. And the best advice I got was just be genuine, be you, right? Don't try to be anybody else. And people respect that. And I know I have the knowledge. I know I have a background that players gravitate to because I've done it. I've been in their shoes. I'm not going to abuse that, right? And I mentioned already, I'm gonna force them to make me earn their respect.
Jim, I'm assuming that safety is a position that you watch from a different lens a little bit. Cole Bishop, when you watch him play, and he kind of ascended throughout this second season of his, what do you see from him? How can you help him get to that next level?
Yeah, was a very big fan of Cole coming out of college. Again, the versatility that he has, he's kind of a jack of all trades, right? He's physical. He can play out in space. He can cover. He kind of is the type of safety that I tried to be myself. So definitely gravitated to his game when he was getting out of college. And there were certain things that he wasn't doing as well at the college level that I felt like there was going to be a little bit of a process for him to really flourish in the NFL. And it was kind of awesome to see him go from year one to year two, and you're starting to see those flashes show up more and more, kind of as I expected through the evaluation process. And now it's just trying to find opportunities for him to continue to grow.
Did you and Joe intentionally want guys who were not far removed from the college game to join your staff? You have Jay Valet, Bobby April, and some of the concepts from college to the NFL? Is that something you guys wanted intentionally?
Not necessarily that it was set out to do it a certain way, but there's great coaches at both levels, and there's a ton of carryover. In my time, I will say the last half of my NFL career and on into my coaching career, I noticed there was a lot more stuff going up from college to the NFL schematically than going down, right? So I think some people, you pretend it's a little bit different game, and it is. There's a lot of differences in what the college game and the NFL game is, but it's morphing more to what the college game is, right? Currently, like there's always trends of how it works, but there's a lot of things that are coming up to this level from that the college coordinators have had to deal with for years and years and years. There's great knowledge at both levels, and we weren't afraid to dip down to that level to go find it.
Coach, where would you see a guy like Terrence Johnson fit in this scheme? Normally, in the last regime, he was more of the will linebacker playing big nickel at times. Would he be more of a traditional safety in your scheme, or how would he?
Yeah, those are the great conversations we're having, and it is a position that schematically was different in what we did in Denver and here. And again, we know he's a great player, extremely productive, great leader. So finding out the perfect role for a player like that is very high on our priority list, right? What it exactly is going to look like is yet to be determined a little bit, but I love the player. I love the personality. Had a great conversation with him. Just he's excited for the change, not knowing what it is, right? And he knows that we're going to communicate with him and find out what's right, because he's been an extremely productive player in the NFL. And now it's trying to find out what the best match of maybe some of the things that I've done in the past and what they did really well to feature a player like that.
You mentioned Joe Brady as a connector. What are your other impressions of Joe so far?
Energy, number one. Obviously, he's very passionate about football. He's very passionate about this place. And you don't have to talk to him very long for that to come across. So, I mean, that was the number one thing. And then just the communication, the openness that he's had with me on what he's trying to do, how he's trying to build this, right? The people he's trying to get in the building, the culture of the team, where he thinks it was great, where he thinks it can improve, right? Just, again, the openness of which he communicated from the first conversation that we had all the way until I was in the building and even till today. So that was the biggest impression that came across to me. I've yet to find a person who said negative things about him. I'm going to find it, don't worry. But everyone had a ton of respect for who he is, his character, what he's all about. So, that went a long way in my decision process as well.
As a defensive play caller, does your philosophy change at all in the postseason compared to the regular season? Because I think one of the knocks on this defense has been that in the regular season, they've been very consistent, but in the postseason, that has not carried over. Is there a philosophical change of what needs to happen defensively in the postseason compared to the regular season?
No, but the talent you play sometimes is a little bit better and more consistent, right? That's why they're winners. It's why they're there. So there is a way to win every game, right? Firmly believe there is a way that you need to play and want to play to win every game. And you have that plan going in, and you have to be adaptable as the game goes on, right? There's going to be things that happen throughout that, adjustments from an offense, things that aren't working on a defense, and firmly believe that you put a great plan together, and it's my job as a coordinator as things start to play out within the course of a game is be willing to adapt and make adjustments. And our players have to understand that is how you win. It's not necessarily different in the postseason than it is the regular season. But again, it's the best of the best at that point. So I think if you build too rigid of a system and a structure and you just count on maybe some of the things you were doing against teams that aren't as good or aren't as consistent as you're going to play in the playoffs, certain quarterbacks, right? Cream rises to the top when you get to the playoffs, and you have to find the right way to beat those players. It might look a little different than the playoff, but the mindset and the attitude is the same. And that's what we want to build this team to beat anyway. right? You want to build a system to beat the best teams that you're playing year in and year out, starting with the division, right? And then you go out to the AFC, and then obviously you got to cross over and play the NFC in that championship game. So you have to build a system that's adaptable enough to beat different styles of offense, different types of quarterbacks, right? Different experience levels. But to me, the best way to do that is with some of the flexibility and having that attacking mindset where your players know that you're going to attack an offense, but you're also going to make changes throughout the game and throughout the season.
Jim, since you've been back in the NFL, where have you seen NFL offenses kind of evolve the most over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think a lot of things trended more towards spread concepts, and I think you're starting to see a little bit of a retreat back to the heavier groupings, the tight end usage, the fullback usage, just based on trends that I'm seeing, right? And it's always been there. It's always been there more at the NFL level than the college level, but I think that's one of the biggest things. And even the last 2 years that you're starting to see that play of like, what is the personnel grouping that best fits the roster? And teams were spreading it out a little bit more. And I think it's kind of coming back to a little bit more of the league norm of what the NFL's been for years and years.
Jim, you mentioned earlier about the closeness of the locker room was something that you liked when you played here. And I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but do you have a favorite memory from actually playing here, whether it be a play you made or a game you had a chance to play in?
One of the best memories, the game was not the memorable thing. It was more after just the energy, the attitude. We played in Cleveland, and it was a snow game, one of those you get snowed in, right? And the whole city shut down. So you kind of just have the hotel, you have your players, end of a season. It was end of a rough season. We were out of the playoffs, but one of those memories that will always stick with you just because it kind of encapsulated what it was. It sucked. It was a shitty game. We got beat. You felt like crap, right? It was snowy. You were stuck. You couldn't get home, but you make the most of it, right? With that team, right? With the people who came to support you, right? It was your team. It was any family that came to support you. They were also stuck. That's all you had, right? So that was one of those memories that will always stick with me. And again, I wish the outcome of the game was a little bit better, but it kind of encapsulated what it is, man. It's this locker room. It's this building. It's the families of the players and coaches, and you kind of felt like that's what you had in that situation.
Jim, what did you learn about?
What was the final score of that game, 6-3?
Something like that. I know they kicked a crazy field goal in the snow that you were trying to figure out how they won or how that went in. But
What did you learn about being an interim when you were an interim head coach? How has that helped you see things from a different lens when you have to have kind of your hands on the whole roster, not just the defensive side?
Yeah, I think it really taught me to surround yourself with the right people so you can trust, like, this is a vision, this is a communication, and giving people the freedom to go do their job, right? Became the interim partway through the year, still called plays the rest of that season, right? So all of a sudden, my job description changed very quickly, dealing with offense, defense, media, you name it, right? All of the things that all get thrown at you. Throughout that process, I learned, like, you can't micromanage this, right? In order to have any type of success and try to kind of throw the brakes on where this thing was going and reset it and move forward. If I tried to micromanage that situation, I would have got buried, right? So, it just reaffirmed, get the right people around you, right? Give them a voice, communicate with them, give them the vision and the plan, and then let them go work for you. And that was probably the number one thing I learned going through that. And obviously you're dealing with there was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of emotion, right? When that decision is made. So not only are you trying to just go win football games, but you're trying to deal with a lot of the, just a lot of energy being wasted on things that were kind of out of players' control and even the team's control.
With all the familiarity, right? When did it really hit you that you was back here? When did it really sink in that, this place is contagious for you? Obviously, this is your third stint. So, like, when did it really hit you?
To me, it was when wheels hit the ground at the airport, right? And you're like, okay, I remember this place. And you start driving here and you get into the building, a lot of this building was different. I think it got updated in 2014, 2015, right? It was right after I left this last time. So there was a number of faces that I recognized, the energy you recognized, right? See the stadium, and like, I know this place. I didn't know the one across the street now. I'm excited to get in there, but that's when it really hit, is when you get here and you start driving around. Like, I know this place. Like, this is not something that I got to come in and try to figure out how to navigate the fan base, how to navigate the city, and what the city really wants this team to look like. You know, that's not a question mark. So that was kind of the cool thing when you got in here, and it's still early. I've managed to find my way to my desk every time. I take different ways to get there, sometimes because I get lost. But so it's still early in the process, but having that familiarity with this place is definitely huge.
I know
Jim,
we
you talk
talked
about
about getting to know Joe, but have you gotten to know Brandon a little bit and like started to have conversations with him about what kind of personnel and what you're looking for in your defense?
Yeah, I was very fortunate yesterday to have a lot of big conversations with the scouting staff and with Brandon, and just kind of what my vision is and how I think we're going to be there. And again, the difficult transition is going to be, it was kind of looked through one lens for quite a while, right? So trying to, again, communicate as clearly as I could of the things that I look for, the things that I value, the things that are kind of no-goes for me. Like, I had a really good opportunity yesterday to just kind of throw a lot of things out there and get questions and try to bounce it as many places as we could, just to create as much clarity for that scouting staff. Because obviously, backs against the wall a little bit. It's coming sooner than later as far as the combine and the draft. So that was awesome. It was the most fun I've had since I got here, right, in this short period of time. But it's just to try to get the vision out there to allow them to do their job to the best of their ability. And, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. And again, hopefully you guys understand, I love empowering the people around me to like question and challenge and let's have these conversations, because that's going to create the most clarity.
Jim, you were coaching against this team. It was only 3 weeks ago. Then you play in the snow game with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. What's it been like for your family and everything? This happens pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's always shocking every year, and this is kind of my big move, right? But every year it shocks you just how fast you go, and then all of a sudden it's like hard stop and it's over, right? So it shocks you every single time you go through that, just the finality of a season and knowing that there's going to be big changes, and sometimes hoping you're not part of the big change, and then other times knowing that you have some big decisions that you're going to have to make. So it's hard every year because you build those relationships, and but I'm excited for the new beginning here. I mean, but it is, and that was a part of the process of knowing what this team is, right? Having played them 2 years in a row in the playoffs, and just understanding the talent in this building and the culture that was here and how they played. Like, it's a pain in the ass to play against that offense. And it was always the most difficult that we played throughout the season. So to have that on my side is going to be a lot of fun.
Brandon said on the radio today that you and Joe actually talked about, hey, this is what I saw from your defense. This is what you saw from his offense. How cool is that for you guys to learn that from each other?
Yeah, it was a great experience to go through. We'll sit down even more, but those 6 to 8 plays, that kind of critical moments in the game, it was like, what did you guys think here? Why did this happen? Like, I mean, that's what we do. That's what we love, right? Is having those conversations. And that's going to be the exciting thing for me, because I know he wants to have those conversations, offense, defense, game planning, to set this up the right way. And, but yeah, it was fun to kind of hash out some of those things, and just, you don't get to do that very often, right? I mean, sometimes coaches on the other side and you can go back and forth a little bit, but to be able to sit down and kind of go through play by play a little bit was exciting, just to see what they're thinking, what we were thinking, and obviously you knew the results based on how the game played out.
Jim, you talked about the basketball guy been here. How much different do you think your lens is than the one that has been here the last few years?
I got a tremendous amount of respect for the coaches that were here. Starting with the defense coordinator, Bobby Babich. He was one of my last DB coaches in Cleveland, right? So I've known him for years. Sean McDermott, obviously highly respected in this business and has done things at a very high level for a long time. We're going to do it a little bit differently than they did, but also understand the respect for what they've done and the success that they've had in this place, right? They built this roster. It's my job to help flip it and transition it a little bit to what my vision and what Joe's vision is for this football team. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for them because I know they're great coaches and they put their heart and soul into this place.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Alright, so what was the lot of folks that?
I'll do the first 15 of that.
Okay.
I can get a big jump jump.
A little bit of the blank that whoever was telling us, so we can be very- No, it's-
Yeah.